clowns, haunted hotels, rabid dogs, and small towns gone quietly, horribly wrong. That's the king most of us know. But beneath many of these stories, Derry, Castle Rock, the Overlook, the mining pit in Nevada, there's something larger holding it all together. And that multiverse has its own godlike beings and cosmic powers, creators, destroyers, and reality-shaping forces who appear under different names in different books, suggesting King was building an interconnected mythology rather than simply writing dozens of completely unconnected horror novels. Scariest villain. Instead, we're compiling the dark gods, beings in King's universe who not only destroy realities, or at the very least threaten them on a multiversal scale, but whose impact is woven through several books as a cosmic force. If this entity's decisions or existence is enough to create or completely shatter entire realities, then they belong on this list. And once you start to look for it, King's multiversal villains can get truly terrifying. From the deity who utilizes Stephen King as a metafictional instrument to maintain order, to a demon whose petty games can lay waste to towns less safe. Gan, the Dark Tower series. If there's a god in the Stephen King multiverse, it is Gan. In King's mythology, Gan is the ultimate creative force. Gan is the being most closely associated with what, in the midworld, is known as the White. This is the order of the universe and a counterpoint to the chaos of the Outer Dark. Gan emerged from the Prim, the primordial chaos described as the void that was when nothing was, and is portrayed as the supreme creative force behind the many universes connected by the Dark Tower, holding them together as part of its cosmic order. And then, this one gets even bigger than almost anything on this list. The books strongly imply that Gan built not only the fictional universe in which Roland the Gunslinger wanders and Pennywise feasts upon the children of Derry, but also the books extend this cosmology into a metafictional world resembling our own, where a fictionalized Stephen King writes Roland's story and becomes part of the narrative. In a genuinely amazing piece of metacanon tucked into the 6th Dark Tower novel, Song of Susanna, King even writes himself into his own narrative as a tool of Gan, borrowing his words and life to ensure the gunslinger can reach his destination. This is, in turn, taken even further. If the fictionalized Stephen King had not completed his work, the tower and the interconnected worlds within the story could have been left vulnerable to collapse, as Roland's quest remained unfinished. Without Roland completing his quest, and without the fictionalized King completing the story, the tower would have remained vulnerable to the Crimson King's plans. The books also frequently reference Gan and the Dark Tower as two different manifestations of the same godlike entity. In the final book, Roland suggests the tower isn't just something Gan built, but might just be Gan. So in a way, it might be Gan himself, a sentient being that's the ultimate force that's keeping the entire multiverse up. For all of these reasons, Gan earns the top spot as the supreme creative force in Stephen King's cosmology. He's not a monster you're gonna try to slay, he is Stephen King's universe equivalent of a supreme creative force, and Roland's quest ultimately depended on the fictionalized Stephen King surviving to finish the story. The Crimson King, the Dark Tower, Insomnia, Black House. If Gan represents the creative order of the White, the Crimson King functions as its destructive cosmic counterpart, a prince of chaos aligned with the Outer Dark. Gan's insane counterpart is the supreme lord of the Red, or the Random, the Outer Dark, and he's the prime exemplar of evil within the King multiverse. What is the purpose for which he exists? It's about as universe-ending as it gets. Bring down the Dark Tower, the cosmic linchpin connecting all existence, then obliterate every other existence that revolves around it, so he can reign alone within the ensuing primordium. A trans-dimensional entity, first properly unveiled in Insomnia, where he's portrayed coercing lesser beings and attempting to eliminate Patrick Danville, who is destined to play a key role in his eventual defeat, the Crimson King later reappears as the overarching evil behind Black Horse, where Jack Sawyer and his allies work to thwart his plans and protect the beams. In the Dark Tower series itself, the Crimson King is revealed to be responsible for destroying the beams that hold up the tower, mostly via manipulation, madness, and his proxies at this stage, having already run nearly everyone he's employed to their demise. He is a shapeshifter who appears in several forms throughout the Dark Tower mythos, most notably as a red human-like figure and in spider-associated imagery. And he doesn't work in solitude. He commands and influences servants such as Walter O'Dim, also known as Randall Flagg, whose own ambitions sometimes place him at odds with his master, along with other agents such as Atropus. This pervasive influence over a half-dozen books makes him the ultimate evil god of annihilation, the principal force trying to dismantle the cosmic order associated with Gaunt. Pennywise, it. Everybody knows Pennywise the dancing clown, but not many people talk about what's actually under the makeup. It's an ancient extra-dimensional predator that crashed to Earth on a meteorite millions of years before human civilization even existed. A hell of a long time before there was even a concept for Derry, Maine. It doesn't follow a human time frame. It slumbers for extended cycles and periodically emerges to feed approximately once every 27 years, subsisting mostly on the fear of children before consuming them. That's where King goes full cosmic horror. The monster's true essence exists beyond our reality in a realm described as the macroverse, later associated by many readers with the Dark Tower's Todash darkness, though the novels never explicitly identify them as the same place. And its core essence lives behind the deadlights, a blinding, reality-bending light that drives anyone who sees it directly to insanity or death. This isn't your average jump-scare monster. It's a being whose true nature can't possibly be comprehended by the human mind. This lies beyond human understanding, and whose mere presence can shatter the minds of those who encounter it. While King's creature clearly draws inspiration from Lovecraftian horror, it remains a unique entity within Stephen King's own mythology. However, this creature of cosmic terror is not unopposed in its torment. It has a rival, an ancient turtle god named Maturin, and their contest is resolved with something called the Ritual of Chud, which is not so much a battle of strength as it is a contest of will. The last detail really solidifies it as not just a monster that poses as a killer clown, but a dark god who has chosen to make a single small Maine town its hunting ground. Maturin the Turtle, the Dark Tower. Maturin is one of the 12 guardians of the beams, the ancient entities stationed on both sides of the 6 beams that hold up the Dark Tower, thus preventing the whole structure of reality from collapsing. But his role is much bigger than simply being a guardian of reality. In some interpretations of King's cosmology, Maturin is regarded as a creator figure who claims to have brought the universe into existence, serving as a more primal counterpart to Gaunt. Expanded Dark Tower lore also tells a story in which Gaunt created the world and Maturin caught it before it fell from existence, though this account comes from the broader mythology rather than being explicitly established in the main novels. In it, Maturin largely remains in the background. Bill Denbrough sees Maturin in the Ritual of Chud, where he offers guidance as a peaceful contrast to what it is, creating rather than devouring. But that's also part of what makes Maturin so unsettling. Despite his immense power, he remains largely distant from human affairs, offering only limited guidance during the Ritual of Chud rather than directly intervening in events. That mix of boundless cosmic energy and the sheer detachment he demonstrates from human tragedy is what allows Maturin his place on this list. He's not a villain. He's just colossally, almost impossibly distant. Just as a god who's dreamed your whole universe into existence likely should be to a small town in Maine. Randall Flagg, Walter O'Dim, The Stand, The Dark Tower, multiple novels. If anyone proves Stephen King's novels all tie together, it's this guy. Randall Flagg is the single most reappearing antagonist King has ever come up with, period. Appearing across numerous novels under various aliases, including Randall Flagg, Walter O'Dim, Martin Broadcloak, and the Man in Black, he's consistently served as a major instigator of some of the darkest events in King's bibliography. whether as the central antagonist or a sinister presence in the background. Many readers have compared Flagg to Lovecraft's outer god Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. While King has never stated they're the same being, the comparison stems from their shared roles as manipulative, shape-shifting figures who travel between places, corrupt people, and spread chaos through deception rather than brute force. In the Dark Tower, the Man in Black is in service to the Outer Dark, a pawn to the Crimson King. In The Stand, he's a figure of Nightmare, the quasi-demonic overlord of post-apocalyptic Las Vegas, reconstructing society according to his evil principles following a pandemic. It is this spectrum, from a post-apocalyptic cult leader who whips the ragged remnants of humanity into shape, to a universe-crossing enchanter working for someone even more evil than he is, which is the primary reason to include him on this list. Flagg may not be forging or breaking universes on the scale of Gan or the Crimson King, but he's extraordinarily long-lived, travels between worlds, and has a hand in more King stories than almost anyone else. Tak, Desperation, the Regulators. Tak looks nothing like a god. Not like there's really much it can look like at all. Tak is an ancient extra-dimensional entity that exists beyond our dimension as a largely formless, malevolent presence. Tak doesn't normally possess a stable physical form in our world, and instead acts primarily by possessing living hosts. To affect our world, Tak must infest an organic host, human or otherwise, which it then uses as a portable vessel, essentially forcing them to perform its commands as an extension of its own being. In Desperation, it uses the body of a Nevada sheriff, Collie and Trajan. In the parallel story, The Regulators, it occupies the body of a young boy. Even the name carries an air of mystery, though its exact meaning and origin are never fully explained within the novels. What elevates Tak from being merely a localized demonic problem to something more widely disturbing is the setup of Desperation and its accompanying novel, The Regulators. They are what's commonly referred to as twinner novels in the Stephen King community, where much of the same core cast of characters is transported to a parallel dimension and has to contend with a version of the same threat. Tak's presence in both parallel stories suggests that the entity exists beyond a single reality, linking the two narratives through King's broader multiversal mythology rather than confirming a single consciousness moving directly between worlds. Atropus, Insomnia, Pet Cemetery. Genuinely, one of the creepiest entries on this list is this guy, mostly because Atropus doesn't look scary at all. He looks little. In King's Insomnia, the protagonist couple, Ralph Roberts and Lois Schass, are afflicted by a group of 3 tiny bald men, whom they name after the Greek Moirai, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropus. The first 2 are working on behalf of the Purpose, the cosmic force that ensures death happens at the right time naturally. Atropus works on his own for a force called the Random, and is cutting people's life threads short just for kicks and to bring chaos to the system. Insomnia really goes there, because Atropus is working for the Crimson King himself, manipulating Ed Deepno into flying an explosives-ridden aircraft into the Derry Civic Center in an attempt to kill Patrick Danville and countless others, disrupting the cosmic balance. The 2 heroes of the story literally had to leave reality and descend into higher levels that the doctors explain using a skyscraper analogy in order to save the day. And what makes King fans want to scratch their skin off is that Atropus's collection includes an item associated with Gage Creed from Pet Cemetery, implying that the Random may have influenced or claimed his premature death. It's an unsettling connection that hints Atropus's reach may extend beyond the events of a single novel. Leland Gaunt, Needful Things. But then there's the dark god who just needs to set up shop. Leland Gaunt is the debonair owner of a new antique store that opens up in Castle Rock, Maine, a recurring setting for many of Stephen King's novels. It's heavily implied throughout the book that he is some sort of ancient demonic or Satan-like entity who has been conducting the same procedure for centuries, moving from town to town under new names. His process is shockingly efficient. He learns each resident's deepest desire, a long-lost baseball card, freedom from arthritis, a sliver of genuine history, and sells it to them for practically nothing. His only demand in return is a simple favor, a lie, a prank, a petty act of wickedness to be carried out against a neighbor. Each favor individually seems harmless, but altogether, dozens of people engaged in this scheme results in arson, betrayal, and eventually mass murder, with long-standing animosities and buried secrets weaponized between them. By the end of the novel, Castle Rock is literally blown apart by explosions and bloodshed. Once the damage is done, Gaunt simply slips out of town in a horse-drawn cart emblazoned with the words Caveat emptor, Latin for "let the buyer beware." The novel ends by suggesting that another shop has recently opened up in a new town, ready to restart the cycle anew. Gaunt doesn't operate on the cosmic scale of Gan or the Crimson King, dealing in towns, not realities. However, his explicitly inhuman nature, his ancient precise methods, and his ultimate goal are consistently to sow the seeds of gradual, quiet ruin among a community. He's a reminder that in King's multiverse, you don't need to try and bring down the Dark Tower to function like a god. All you need is time and a really well-curated collection. The Beam Guardians, the Dark Tower series. Each of the Guardians individually doesn't amount to much more than a character. Combined, if they mess it up, then the entire thing collapses. There are a dozen of them, each associated with one end of the 6 beams portals that anchor the beams extending from the Dark Tower. Together, they protect the pathways connected to the beams that help hold reality together. They include Maturin the Turtle, Shardik the Bear, and Guardians associated with the elephant, dog, eagle, rat, bat, wolf, fish, hare, lion, and horse. Each is associated with an animal and a direction, and together they form a kind of zodiac across the land that, in the stories, Roland's people actually teach their children to draw. Some expanded Dark Tower references material assigns mythological names to several guardians, such as Garuda for the Eagle Guardian, though these details are not emphasized in the core novels. Their powers aren't at issue, just the integrity of their function. Some of their identities were, not too subtly, pilfered from established mythology. For example, it makes a certain sense for the guardian whose function it is to support the East Beam and is associated with flight and air to be an eagle called Garuda, Mount of Vishnu, and where the guardian's concept becomes truly frightening is in its mechanical nature. As the beams weaken, reality itself begins to destabilize. Roland's world shows signs of this decay through distorted directions, failing natural order, and widespread environmental collapse. Shardik, the cyborg bear guardian encountered in the wastelands, reflects that wider deterioration rather than causing it on his own. It's slow and systemic and apocalyptic in its scale. They are structural rather than narrative in their nature, though this doesn't make them less significant. They are load-bearing gods that provide support for the entire existence of the world, and when they finally fail, they do so in truly catastrophic and global style. The Dark Tower itself, the Dark Tower series. And then, not a beast, not a demon, not a monster, a building. Or at the very least, something that looks like a building. The Dark Tower in King's cosmology isn't just an architectural fixture, but a vibrant mystical axis point to which countless realities, including a fictionalized version of our own world, are connected by the way of the beams. It's a perpetual battleground, beleaguered by creatures of the outer dark, chief amongst them the Crimson King, all desperate to see it collapse and to preside over the resulting anarchy. Roland Deschain's decades-long trek through the 7 main Dark Tower novels is ultimately a journey to this place, and the author's treatment of it has a palpable religious devotion to it, prophetic visions, the notion of Ka, the imagery of roses, and beams taking on something closer to the form of sacred text. As has been noted in the conclusion, the protagonist posited that it wasn't just built by Gan, but that it might be Gan, in a sense. On top of it all is a meta-element that frankly represents the most chilling aspect of this whole compilation. The Dark Tower isn't just the focal point of a single series. It's the organizing center of a
vast, interconnected body of Stephen King's work. Magical doors, hints, and various characters seep across his universe in a dozen of his disparate novels. It, Insomnia, The Stand, Hearts in Atlantis, and others, all leading back to this structure. The Dark Tower makes the list not because it's a conventional character, but because it functions as the living cosmic axis of King's mythology, serving as the pillar that holds reality together and being the central force linking much of his interconnected universe. And there we have it. 10 characters who can confirm that beneath all the clowns, haunted hotels, and creepy small-town narratives, Stephen King has created something akin to a mythology, a pantheon of creator and destroyer gods, with cosmic henchmen influencing events both large-scale, such as saving the entire multiverse from being devoured, and down to something as small as one family's misfortune in Pet Sematary. What's also incredibly unnerving, once you identify it, is the connecting thread amongst them. Most are entirely unaware of our existence, whether it be Gant's sheer aloofness, the impartial observer that is Maturin, or the robotic beam guardians. Humanity rarely seems to register as a concern. Instead, it's their demented counterparts, such as Atropus, the Crimson King, Tack, or Leland Gaunt, who treat us as inconsequential pieces of an unimaginably larger cosmic board game. From a dream god who manufactures existence from thin air to a devilishly incarnate proprietor of a magical emporium, Stephen King's most horrifying manifestations do more than just haunt. They rule above us as amoral, twisted deities. So, if one of these were to actually set their sights on this realm, who would you find the most intimidating of the bunch? Leave a comment with your thoughts below. Like the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like us to explore more of the mythology behind King's vast, sprawling universe.